Hello, and you are looking live at another edition of Pump It Up, a Kentucky baseball podcast. We're back here, KSR Virtual Studios, here to talk some more baseball, winning baseball for you. This episode, as all episodes of Pump It Up, is presented by Friends of Coal. Friends of Coal is dedicated to informing and educating Kentucky citizens about the coal industry and its vital role in the state's future. We provide a united voice for an industry that has been and remains a critical economic contributor to Kentucky. By working together, we can provide good jobs and benefits for future generations. Coal is resilient, reliable, and affordable. Friends of Coal is a volunteer organization. All are invited to be a part of our organization, which consists of proud Kentuckians as well as residents from beyond our borders. Head to friendsofcoalkentucky.org to learn more. Join me as always, or normally always, Batcat Central's Terry. Derek, how you doing, my man?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Busy time, as everyone knows. It's like triple crossover season. We've got spring practice starting up, and a lot of recruiting activity on the football side, basketball. It's the most busy part of the schedule, as everyone knows. It's March 17th on St. Patrick's Day here in Kentucky baseball. SEC play starts at kind of a unique time. It's like, oh, we're starting at the SEC tournament weekend, but it's here, and this is when the season, at least to me, gets really real. And so we're here to talk some baseball before the basketball, madness starts, and other games are going on right now. But as we record here on Tuesday night, excited to get in here with you and talk some baseball. And this Kentucky team, Derek, they just keep setting them up and mowing them down.
Yeah, 13 in a row. Wins have not lost at all in March. You got to go all the way back to February 21st, the last time they lost a game, and that was a 1-0 shutout. So been a while here that they've been playing some pretty good ball. And if you would have looked at the schedule, I think, Adam, just with the possibilities of sweeps in the SEC, this one wouldn't have been first necessarily. It can't be whenever you have Missouri on the schedule.
Sure.
But this is one that whenever you look kind of later down the road, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Arkansas, all these other teams that are going to come to Kentucky Proud Park, this one felt like if you could get all three, it would really set you up quite well. And the fact that they were able to do that, obviously they're off on an extremely good a good foot here to start SEC play.
Yeah. Do we know what the program record is for consecutive wins? What's even the Minjiom record, I wonder? They've got to be pushing it. Especially the Minjiom record, I would imagine.
Let's see what they got to in 24. I don't have it off the top of my head. I thought the 24 team went on a pretty lengthy one there, but I don't know.
They were like 14. Were they like 13-1 SEC play? Something. I want to say that was the number, but I think there was a loss kind of in the middle.
Yeah, this team had long stretches where they would win maybe 7 or 8 and then lose one and then pick right back up. So sure. Not quite the extent where they're at right now. It's a great question. This would have been a good trivia question to look up before we got on here.
Yeah, it sounds like something I should put on a website. So maybe I'll look that up today when I get off the podcast. But point being, I think they're playing really good ball right now. I think you look back, like the 1-0 loss was a Sunday doubleheader. Lefty, who they've kind of had some issues with lefties. 1-0. Nate Harris pitches a good game. The other game was the Morehead State. They just, I would say, they just didn't play well, specifically in the last 4-5 innings of that game. So other than that, they just really, I think they're just playing good baseball. To me, watching them, Derek, I just think, one, I think the pieces fit. Like the roster, how they built this roster, I think the pieces fit. And then I really do think they do a good job of just kind of playing to their identity. The we don't move execution. Like you even had Hudson Brown bunt RBI and then, hits the bombs.
Homer.
Yeah. It's just like they're just doing it all. And even I think Bell returning, I think he made a big difference. And I thought you could feel his presence against the Citadel, but even against Alabama, they won without him. and then he shows up and makes a big, I thought, impact in the Game 3 win. But overall, to me, people were asking me how good's Alabama. To me, it felt like they swept the Kentucky team from last year. Like that kind of feels what Alabama's going to be, like a 2 or 3 seed in some region. They'll have to go to like Georgia Tech or something, but they feel like a team that's I think is going to be in the tournament.
Yeah, like it was a solid team that came in here. All three of those games were tight. You know, like play here, play there. It could have been different, and I think for Kentucky to find a way to win all three, it was obviously a huge deal. Going back to prior, I did a little quick math. Well, not really math. I was just counting. It looks like they won 17 in a row at one point in 23 early on. So that's as far back as I got to. So once you do your research, maybe you'll find more. But yeah, with Kentucky this weekend, I thought Jelkin, you know, to be able to come back after a start against the Citadel where he really had to kind of grind through to get them some innings to come back on this Friday night, the first time he's pitching, you know, in an SEC game in his career, really got them off on the right foot. That's what you're looking for out of your Friday night guy. You know, give you some length, show, you know, kind of show what the other team might be in for the weekend. And I thought he really did a nice job there. It helped. I mean, the home runs, honestly, on Friday night were huge. This has been a thing for this team where in some of the, you know, early on, people kind of wondered about the power a little bit. They're, you know, Lawrence, the home run in the opening series, and it seemed like he was the only one who homered for a while, right? You know, and the weather was pretty cold out. And then, you know, you get Hendel hitting a 2-run shot to lead it off. Schwartz homered. They had one more in there too. I forget who hit the other one. And then you mentioned Hudson's on Saturday.
Jenkins.
And then
Jenkins had one oppo.
Yeah, his first career home run. So able to play long ball a little bit there. And you mentioned Bell. That was a bit of a worrisome development Friday. Whenever it kind of starts to trickle out a little bit before the game that, you know, he's not going to be playing, and you kind of wonder, like Kentucky fans are kind of conditioned for the worst with these shoulder injuries, but
sure.
he was back out there, you know, and it was a positive thing. Cerny, you know, came back. But just the overall depth to, you know, have a guy like Caden Plaid be able to start and kind of hold his own in an SEC game. This does feel, to me, I think you got to let a season play out a little bit more, obviously, but already it does feel like an improved team for sure over last year's group. And some spots here and there that they're going to have to, you know, figure out some answers probably moving forward. But this, to get to 3-0 with how this schedule sets up, where you go to Ole Miss for a Thursday through Saturday series here this week, and then to LSU, the back-to-back road series, on paper in the preseason, that looked pretty brutal. They might be catching LSU at a time here early on before they kind of have their things figured out, potentially. But I feel like if you're right around 4 or 5 wins, you know, through those first 12 games, you'd be in a pretty good spot, and taking 3 at home should make that much easier to get to.
Yeah, I think you won the home runs, right? If you're going to need to score 6+ runs in each game to win, like over a weekend, you're going to need a game where you just kind of mash the ball out of the ballpark. And so that was good to get that on Friday because they kind of needed it, because Jelkin, I thought, pitched really well. He just made a couple mistake pitches, and Alabama made him pay for those, which will happen in this league. So that was good. And then they were able to win, I thought, in multiple ways. With, you know, the bullpen Game 2, Saturday, Ben Cleaver gets pulled early, and you kind of have to scrape together 8 innings. You burn through some arms by having to do that. Then it's Sunday. It's really important for Nate Harris to give them a good start. And it was really important, I thought, to have some cushion going in the last 3 innings because you knew it was going to be a ride there to get the last 9 to 12 outs of that game. And they were able to do that. And I think we've seen this team has been able to win games in different ways. We've seen low-scoring wins, St. John series. We've seen where they've needed 10+ runs to score. And then we've seen a SEC series where, you know, they get a lead, and then the bullpen has to, you know, find a way to get them out of it. And so I think they're finding different ways to win. And I think that builds optimism and confidence and momentum for them as they continue through this season.
I think we talked about it the last time I was on here. I missed last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess now Jeff was on. But I felt like you were starting to get an idea of what their bullpen arms were going to be. And then this weekend, I thought really solidified that. I mean, they were clutch all weekend. You already mentioned having to cover 8.1 innings. I don't know how many teams would win a game like that in the SEC when you have to ask your bullpen to cover that much. It's just so risky. I mean, you see it sometimes in MLB when these teams use openers. Like, it can be effective at times, but also the only thing it takes is one or two guys, kind of getting blown up, and it's really hard to win. But they had to get out of some huge jams, like you mentioned, on Friday and Sunday, and then on Saturday. I mean, obviously on Saturday as well. Bennett coming in, and when it got down to the one run there at the end of the game, so huge step forward, I thought, in that way. Confidence wise, it's really unique to all the different roles that guys are playing. Bennett has come in early in games. He's been their closer as well. Niall Adcock, first guy in there on Saturday. He's pitching in the first inning on Saturday, and he's closing the game on Sunday. I mean, the versatility that you're seeing, and that was a pretty big development because Niall was a guy they brought in from junior college last year. Wouldn't say he really threw any meaningful innings for the most part last season. And then here he is now, his senior year, second year in the program, being asked to come in and shut the door after Ira Austin came in the eighth. I think coming into the season, there was a thought that Ira might be their closer, but they were kind of flipped there. I mean, theoretically could have brought Niall in the eighth at the time that Ira came in. But based on the matchups or whatnot, they went the other way. And Niall really drama-free, right? 1, 2, 3, ninth. So a really positive development there. I think you have to really like what Jelkin's doing, and I think you have to really like what Nate Harris is doing. Nate, there's going to be times he's just going to be up and down, I think. He was like that a little bit last year. This year, I think he's already showing some more higher-end stuff. He, had the 9 strikeouts a couple weeks ago. Had the 7, I think, against Evansville. And then first SEC start this year, carries a no-hitter into the 7th. I'm sure he'll have a few more outings this year where, he's not able to go as long. But in the spot that this team was in, that was just huge that you're able to get that out of a sophomore coming in, knowing the stakes and giving those guys a rest out of the pen. So feeling good about those two. And then really it's just kind of Cleaver on Saturday. Got to figure out what's going on there. And because I think, Luckett, if they're able to get him figured out, this becomes a pretty tough team on the weekends.
Yeah, Jelkin and Harris, both 22-plus innings. Jelkin sitting at 26-2, Harris at 22-1, both with whips under 1, just a little bit under 1. Harris has only given up 13 hits in those 22 innings, 26 Ks for him, 31 for Jelkin. I don't have the K rate up here, but a lot to a little here. And then the one thing with Harris, you'd like to see him keep the walks and the HBPs down. He's already hit 6 batters and 5 starts, and he's got 9 walks, so 15 free passes, where I think Jelkin, that's been probably the biggest difference between them. He's kept those down. But opposing lineups, 171 average against Nate Harris here through 5 starts. So he's doing he's been as good as I think you could have hoped for to this point. And it's a nice, I think, kind of bookend they've got in the rotation with Jelkin and with Harris. But before I do want to get to Ben Cleaver, but before I do it, it just seems like, all right, it's Jelkin and Madison on Friday. At least that's how it played out this weekend. And then Jack Bennett's the closer. And you would like to probably use him on Saturday. Are you surprised at how that has shaken out, or was that kind of your projection or how you thought it might go as we got into this into the league play and the roles start to be defined there in the pen?
I am surprised at Bennett being the closer. Not now having watched it, but just preseason, I felt like Bennett was going to serve in that kind of long relief role that Madison's ultimately ended up taking. I felt like Bennett was probably their 4th starter, that if something happened to one of the guys on the weekend, he would just slide in. And I think that could still happen if they end up going that route. But clearly he's the guy they trust the most here at the end of the games. And having watched pretty much everyone on this team throw at this point, I think that's the right move to make there. Madison, that's been a big development. He was a big target, I guess you could say, out of the portal. He didn't have a great sophomore year at Grand Canyon, but was pretty impressive as a freshman. He was ranked high by 64 analytics, and where there's just not like a lot of college baseball transfer portal stuff. It's like really like the only ranking you could even go off of. I think he came in with the fans at least kind of knowing who he was and having some high expectations in that way. and to have a changeup like he has, to have like that one really plus pitch,
Yeah.
has helped him a lot. Just because the fastball is nothing, nothing out of this world, but to have the one pitch, it's just so good he can lean on. That's been a big development, for them for sure. And it is always interesting in a season how it plays out, because preseason I would have told you, Tommy Skelding would play a pretty big role, and he has to an extent. I think he's at just was looking at it a minute ago. His appearances maybe aren't quite as high as I would have thought. He's at 5 on the season, whereas Adcock's at 8. You really can't talk that much about the bullpen without bringing up Berkeley Bounds, who is tied for the team leading appearances. He got a big opportunity on Saturday. Almost got to the end of the game there. That's kind of Dan Roselle, pitching coach specialty kind of things. These guys that you just like don't know a ton about coming in, and then they just find ways to get outs. Berkeley, he falls right in line there, and he's a sophomore, local kid. I don't know if maybe that's bringing a little bit more out of him. Pitcher for the hometown school, but in the early going, I mean, he's got. You mentioned the batting averages against, I think, with some of the starters. Well, Berkeley's at 191 right now, and he's not. At this point, he's thrown quite a few. It's 13.1 innings. So, it's not like all of his outings are super long out of the pen, but that's still, I think, 5th most on the team at this point. So that's a surprise. I would not have thought that coming in, and that's been a really positive development for this bullpen.
Yeah, and the K rate's up there, 20 over 13.1. He's been really, really impressive. I think Skelding just got off to kind of a slow start. It felt like he's looked a lot better, I think, these last couple outings. And then I thought it was good they will need another arm back there, and just like some big outs from Ira Austin this week. And I really thought they really needed someone, I thought, to step up there, get them some big outs in. I thought Adcock, he's come in early in some of these games when they pulled a starter early and really, I think, settled some things down for them. And then seeing Austin, I mean, it felt a little shaky there in the 8th or on Sunday, and he gets that big strikeout after walking the batter, I think, to load the bases. So the bullpen, go ahead.
Well, Tristan Hunter was really close to having an outstanding inning. He struck out 2 when he got he ended up giving up a couple of the hits there. Couldn't quite get out, but that was on the verge of being a really big development in that game between 2 sophomores, with Harris getting there into the 7th and Hunter coming in after I covered that game, but I forget who he replaced. There was another pitcher in, right? I believe before him. I forget who it was, but came in and got 2 Ks. It just about got out of that. That would have been a big development. I mean, Hunter's one of the guys, you're talking about a back end arm. I mean, he was hitting 95 on Sunday. I mean, he's outside of, Jelkin. It's probably the biggest arm on the team in that way. And I don't know who it'll ultimately be. I totally agree with you. Like, they might feel a little bit like an arm short right now, but I do think they have some good options within that could do it. And Hunter could be one. Oliver Boone could be 2, maybe, as he gets a little bit more work from injury. But Tristan was one I wanted to point out, because he almost had a pretty loud inning there. He couldn't quite finish it off, but I thought it was a big spot for him to come into, for one, because he's mainly been like a midweek guy throughout a lot of his young career to this point, and to be in there on a Sunday and strike out a couple of batters. That would have been huge if he could have finished it off. But either way, I thought it was still a pretty good outing from him.
Yeah, and part of the reason, as we kind of alluded to earlier, so many bullpen outs were needed, specifically on Saturday, was second start in a row, really, for Ben Cleaver, just real short. It had to be pulled. I believe it's, even dating back to the St. John series, he got around a bunch of jams, but ended up having to, I believe he left that game after 3, just because the pitch count was so high. To me, it seems like location for him is part of the issues, because it's just not pumping the zone full of strikes. I'm getting behind a lot. It feels like a lot of 3-2 counts, and a lot of losing those 3-2 counts to walks. What's kind of your, I guess, analysis or assessment on what's going on kind of with him here in these last kind of 3 starts we've seen, where he's not even getting out of the 3rd inning. And then this one was, the first. He had to be pulled in the 1st.
Definitely fighting his control. Yeah. It seems like it's got to be mechanically. I mean, he's making all of his starts. I don't think there's any kind of injury issue there. It doesn't seem. I mean, he's still going out there every Saturday to throw. I don't have the ball strikes from St. John's, but against the Citadel, he was 37 strikes to 34 balls, and then Saturday he was 21 balls to 16 strikes. So I mean, just you can't live that way. I mean, they know this obviously, but pulling him in the first, I mean, it was an aggressive move, but kind of felt like you just couldn't mess around with that much. We talked about it. Well, I guess we hadn't. I talked about it with some other people. Just it's playing with fire, putting as many guys on bases as he was in those other games. It's a tricky situation to an extent because Ben was so good last season. He was the guy that they gave the ball to open that regional. I mean, he legitimately had a good year in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
The best pitcher on the staff last season, and I would want to give him time to figure this out. Because the payoff I think is still there. But they asked a lot of the bullpen on Saturday, and it came through on that day. That's just the one development that is surprising. I think he missed a little bit of time in the fall, like not all of the fall, but a little bit. And when he came back, it was still just kind of okay. But you take that for what it's worth in the fall. I mean, I've seen plenty of guys going out there that look awesome and then have bad seasons, and I've seen the reverse where it's like, what do they see in this guy? And then they get into games and they're great. So I didn't really spend too much time worrying about Ben. I figured this would be somebody that would come in and you could count on again. And still in the early going, but I don't think you would say he's really had a good outing. I mean, his opener was pretty good against Greensboro. Evansville, compared to the last few, was good in that way. Still had a few walks, still walked 2, but he at least was able to get through 4 innings, whereas his last 3 starts he's thrown 6.2 innings. Just not giving them any kind of length at all right now. So that'll be something that like I said, I think you got to keep giving him outings. I think he's earned a long leash to try to figure it out. But you'd like to see him turn the corner here pretty soon.
Yeah, it feels like a big start coming up for him here Friday night against Ole Miss. But 12 hits. And then 16 free passes, I believe, is the number here allowed.
That is, yeah.
So over 14 and 14.2. So, yeah, that's not sustainable at all. And it's just something like, to me, it's just – it feels almost – to me, he's the type of pitcher profile too, Derek, just can't afford to fall behind in counts. Because he's not throwing it past anybody. You're not pumping – he's not pumping the zone and just throwing it past you, where I think Jelkin and Harris can do that if they fall behind. So for him, I think it's really important that he gets ahead in these counts. He gets behind, and then it gets, you get in that nibble situation. And then there's times, I think, where if he gets behind early in these games, he doesn't get some of the calls I think he would get if he's pounding the zone early in the first couple innings and throwing a lot of strikes. Just his profile as a pitcher, to me, it's got to be a guy that's got to light up the strike zone. Because if you're living outside there, I think it's just a tough place to be, a tough spot. And so for me, it just seems like location. He's got to get back to getting ahead of counts and pitching that way.
The other thing too, I think with this situation is there's really not some clean cut alternative. Whereas, last year you had a freshman in Nate Harris, who was the midweek guy who you're maybe grooming to, one day, maybe sooner than they expected, to be a weekend starter. Doesn't really exist on this team at this point. Chase Alderman was starting on the midweeks. He's popped up on the injury report. You had Will Coleman starting games. I think Will is a promising freshman, probably not quite ready.
He's a soft opener, it feels like to me right now in those midweeks. It's give us 2, give us 3, and then take us home bullpen.
Yeah. So, that's another reason I think Ben, I don't think you're quite like to the territory of, it's to the point, it's 3 straight starts. So you're kind of wondering what's going on, but certainly nothing's been decided, I don't think, in that way. So, it's very encouraging what Jelkin and Harris are doing, as you mentioned earlier, and on Saturdays, just got to try to figure this out here. And I think you got to have confidence in his track record, Cleaver. That is, that he'll work through it and figure it out. But I would imagine too. I mean, part of this is his freshman year. He just didn't throw a lot last year. Like I said, I mean, he was pretty much solid all year. Like, I don't really remember any bad stretches at all from Ben. So this is really the first time he's kind of going through it, where his outings aren't very clean and he's falling behind and he's pretty much constantly under stress throwing the ball whenever he's out in these games. So got to figure it out and go from there. I mean, that's the one thing that like I said, I mean, if you can get that figured out, I mean, this is a solid rotation. I don't know where they would be in the SEC. I guess I don't know enough about every other rotation, but it's a really strong group. And the bullpen, I think we've mentioned how they've pretty much started to define their roles. You just get a lot of things in flux if you end up having to make some kind of change on the weekend. So, I mean, there's a lot of incentive, I think, from the leash that Ben has earned, and then just plus two, like, I think there's probably for the most part want to keep people in these roles that they're starting to get comfortable with. So I do think that Friday start, I mean, more than anything, that's maybe like my biggest storyline going in. I mean, I think it's a massive start on Friday.
Yeah, I think it's huge for him. I think, you feel like you've got all the pieces in place. You just need his block, to go in there and just really fill that final hole, because you feel like you're in a good place with the bullpen. Your system is working right now. You've got kind of even your midweek setup, I think, has found a little rhythm here. But you need the Cleaver of last year, and it's a rotation, Derek. I think if you get Cleaver to get to where everyone thought he would be, that's a rotation. I think you walk into every series, and I think you walk into a regional or a super thinking we can win this because of it. We got the pitching here. We get the starting pitching. We can win this because at worst, we're going to be in a close game in the 6th, 7th, and 8th. I mean, we're going to have a chance to win this game. So they just got to get, I think, that kind of ironed out. And that's a huge, I think these next probably 2 weekends are big for him. And they're both road starts at tough, where they're going to be tough environments, Ole Miss and LSU. So we're gonna find out. But there's also some offense we need to talk to. But before we get there, we are thrilled to have our friend Andy Ludicky sponsoring our baseball coverage this spring with On3. He is a big baseball fan, and from his line of work, he has seen firsthand the fantastic traits that baseball players bring to the franchise world. Are you sick of your job, ready to leave the corporate rat race? Want to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy? Have a job and want a side hustle? Andy can help. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, passions, and financial requirements. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help you if you have any questions about business ownership. Head to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more, or you can text or call Andy at 404-973-9901. As we shift forward here, Derek, I just want to talk about Hudson Brown. He starts off the season like he's over 400, felt like the first 3 weeks or so of the season, but you were just, where's the power? Where's the power? Where's the power? I believe he leads the team in walks, but you felt like the power was going to come. I think even Doug Flynn said it on the broadcast. You don't really want to say anything to him because he's hitting the ball hard. He's hitting line drives, making good contact. You just feel like he's a big dude. The power is going to come. And then when it came, I think there were 2 no-doubters over the right field fence there in KPP. And both home runs I thought were big. Obviously the 3-run shot ended up being the difference, I believe in the 7th inning on Saturday. And then he got Kentucky, really going and got them that early lead that we kind of talked about on Sunday that you wanted them to get out to. So for him, that I think he's been a really nice development for the offense and someone they can kind of count on in the middle of that order.
Yeah, anyone who stepped outside of their door in the state on Sunday too, like, knew how windy it was. I mean, it was some of the strongest wind gusts probably ever of a game I covered at Kentucky Pride Park. And he pulled it right into the wind on Sunday out of there. I mean, you gotta, to your point where you're wondering like kind of where the power is, like clearly he has it in him to hit the ball out really to any part of the park. But in right field on Sunday, that was really a no-doubter. That was impressive. He has been a really positive development. We talked about it, I think, on the preseason episode with Hudson. It was it's a very easy thing for him. It was like, if you hit, you're on a play, and if not, they'll probably have to figure out some ways around it. And he has, I think, both ways. Offensively, obviously, he's slashing 352, 478, and 521. But defensively, I think he's been so solid over there as well.
He's had a couple good scoops,
Yeah. I mean, he's just had a really nice season. He's taken the step you hope that he would after how he closed his freshman season. He's a no doubt guy to put in the lineup right now. It has been all season. I mean, he started every game. A really positive development, and certainly somebody who's worthy of talking about as one of the early offensive MVPs on this team. You hope that he can kind of carry that over. I don't have his last year numbers pulled up. I'm wondering if he's already matched those SEC home runs. He only hit 3 altogether last year. I know he hit one against A&M, and I can't quite remember the others.
Well, he had one in the Clemson regional. Yeah,
in the regional. So, yeah, he would have already tied it then, or maybe surpassed it, depending on when that other home run was. So, yeah, taking the steps forward. I mean, you think about the games he started last season. I mean, he played in 43, but he only started 29. Well, you look up, he's already at 20 starts this year. So, I mean, this is someone who's getting a lot of experience under his belt, been through the league one time already. So, that's always a pretty big adjustment period for guys in that first season. And he's gone through it and starting off really well. What did he end up with? I think hitting 400 this weekend. I think he went 4 for 10, I want to say.
That sounds right, yeah.
At the plate. So, yeah, a solid weekend for Hudson, and especially there on Friday whenever you don't have Bell and you need to see somebody else step up. I don't think he had a great game Friday compared to the other two, I want to say, but yeah, he was probably, would you say, the offensive standout over the weekend? Maybe.
Yeah, I think they had the barrage on Friday, but he was, I thought, the big cog in Saturday and Sunday's wins to me. He got off that hot start, and he was just kind of 1 for 4s, in that kind of range. And then then you finally saw, I think, the power. And it really helped on Saturday, I thought, with no Bell in the lineup, because that 3-run homer, it was one of the biggest, I thought, hits they had all year. Late innings, close game. It gave them some big insurance runs when Bama was starting to claw back.
Yep. They needed all 3 of those.
They needed all 3 of them. That ended up being, to me, like when I wrote the recap, I was like, that's the difference in the game, was Brown hit that 3-run bomb, and it was just too much for Bama to recover after that. So for him, I just think he's been really important, and we didn't get this player spotlight last week because we didn't have it, but Ethan Hindle has also been huge. I think really big for this baseball team. Felt like for a couple of weeks there, he was the only one hitting for power with Bell out, and then Bell's come back, and I think that's helped, everyone in the lineup. But Hindle's showing, I think, some real power. All he does is hit for extra bases. If that ball is hit fair off his bat, he's 2 bagging or more, it seems like.
Yeah, he's had a very impressive year. I mean, especially playing second too. So he's had to do the 2-way thing as well, like we were talking about with some of these other guys. It is pretty staggering how often, if he's getting on base, it's because he hit for extra bases, like you said, or he's been plunked or drawn a walk. I mean, his OBP is still very good in the early going. Didn't have as good of a game on Sunday, but Friday, to kind of set the tone there in that first inning, to go dead center at that ballpark is not easy. And he definitely got them off on a really good foot. He's just played so well that, even if there comes a time that Tyler can play the field again, and I have no idea if he'll be able to or not. I think at this point you're just happy to even have him DHing. He is still a must play. Ethan has forced his way in there, and it's gonna be up to other people, to try to unseat him from there. So that's been, I was thinking at the game Sunday, I was like, man, if you would have told me in the preseason that Hindle's like 3-hole, I wouldn't have. That's just not something I would have expected. And he's but he's earned it. I mean, he should be. He's the guy who should be hitting there at this point in the season. So, big deal for him. The only other thing I wanted to note on Hudson before we moved off of him is, he is going back home this weekend.
That's right.
Where he grew up, pretty. I don't think he grew up too far from Oxford. He's a Mississippi native. I think he's up there in northern Mississippi. So, I know they played in Starkville last year. So he's played an SEC series back in his home state. But this one I think is, probably truly a little bit more closer to home for him. So, sure he'll have a lot of friends and family there to check that out, which will be an interesting, always an interesting thing when guys go home. Could be good or could be, maybe not so good. So that'll be another little storyline to keep up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And they won't have to worry about the snow because I think it's going to be 80 degrees all weekend. The high 70s, low 80s. I think they're in Oxford. So it's going to be good baseball weather. And you won't need to stream Thursday night's game. SEC Network is going to carry Thursday night's game, 8 p.m. Eastern start, then 7:30 p.m. Eastern start on Friday. That one will be on Plus, and then a 2:30 p.m. Eastern start on Saturday. That one will also be on Plus. So big weekend coming up for the Batcats, and Brown has been a very nice surprise. Hindle's been a nice surprise, and then I think Tarnish and Luke Lawrence just kind of been steady Eddies there at the top of the card. Jeff, who was on
Schwartz
here last
turned it
time,
around a little bit.
Schwartz is getting warmed up.
Yeah.
Jeff, who was on here a couple of weeks ago, just gushed about just kind of the in-person at-bats and process you see from Owen Jenkins. Just feels like he's, older than he is, plays like a veteran and approaches it like a veteran. So, you get Bell back in here, Derek, and I even liked what they've gotten from Taggart Tyson on the Saturdays, just in the lineup, just giving them a little something there. You start the lineup. To me, Bell gets in there, and then you start seeing all the pieces come together. It fits better to me, and you can see the potential. And there's more, I think, run scoring opportunities when you've got that, a guy like Bell who heck, I think he's getting on base 85% of the time or something since he got back. And so that just makes a big difference. And then I think they've got guys around him who have been making pitching staffs pay when you look at Hindle and Brown.
It is a tough lineup. I mean, there's some good length amongst this group. Owen, you mentioned that's one of the most positive developments, I think, and one of the surprises to an extent. Not surprising that he's playing so much, but probably surprising to the amount that he has taken this and run with it. But his at bats going back to the fall too were some of the best. I want to say he was averaging I think 6 pitches per plate appearance just as a freshman rolling into college, seeing college arms for the first time. So clearly a guy too, we saw it for the first time, the home run opposite field. He's going to tap into that more and more. He's the kind of guy you just love to dream on what he might look like as a junior. They've had good catchers in the past. I mean, Devin Burks was an important part of the program, but in terms of just the upside of what a player can be, I mean, that's a guy that I would be stunned if he gets to his junior year and we're not talking about him on the preseason, top 75 or whatever, probably going in. Just hard to find catchers like that. So got to clean up his defense a little bit more too. I think it's one area. And it's sometimes hard to tell, in the box, if it's on the catcher or just a bad pitch, but probably still a few too many that really aren't that clean back there. But offensively, really come along. You mentioned Taggart. I mean, that's another pretty good development. We've just not really seen Alex Duffy that much, and these are the two catchers that they've chosen to go with, it seems. And Taggart's filling in there. But sometimes, I think it was at Saturday, I believe. I can't. Well, no, at some points this season they have used Jenkins as a DH. I can't remember if they did over the weekend or not. But the overall just build of the team is good. I mean, you're middle infield wise, if there were to be one more injury, that would be tough on them. But I mean, at the same time, you're talking about being down 2 middle infielders at that point, which is just any team is probably going to have a hard time overcoming that. But outfield, I mean, Hansen is still getting some DH at bats here and there. He played left field on Sunday, started out in left against a righty. Will Marcy, got a start over the weekend. Yeah. So you got 5 outfielders right there that you feel like you can play. And he's not played in a while, but Braxton Van Cleve was another guy that did enough to get in the lineup early. There's some real depth to this team. This feels just like a really solid team that I do think still has some pretty high upside with some of the players. Like if you're able to keep Bell in the lineup, I mean, it's kind of your superstar there. And then you've had some of these other guys supplement it, step up and have seasons better than what you would have thought in the early going, at least so far through. I mean, we're coming up though. I mean, we're probably close to a third of the way through the season. I don't know how many games are actually scheduled, but they've played 20. So, I mean, typically you don't play more than around 50 or 52, I think, in the regular season. So, enough so far to kind of form some opinions, I would say. And
yeah,
this is a strong team.
You're a week away from the halfway point. You play 20 games.
Yeah.
After that LSU series wraps up, you'll be at the halfway point next weekend.
Yeah.
So
it flies by, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, man. It does, man. You get lost in the weekly. That's the best part about baseball is, to me, you just get lost in the week. It feels like a long season, but sometimes it just keeps moving along, and you just keep riding the train. But we mentioned that it's almost a halfway point. And on here, I do want to, and maybe not do this every episode, but just kind of do a check-in of where Kentucky is resume-wise. Because that's, I think, the question especially when we get into April. That's the question everyone's going to ask. Is Kentucky going to host? That's the question we're going to get. Are they going to host? Are they going to host? Are we going to host? Are we going to be national seed? So that's really what I want to look at. Now, it's way too early, I think, to even do a bracket projection at this point and look at even that. But it's not too early. I think the RPI now, Derek, once we've got some data now where I think it starts to get more real. Now, it'll change as, these conference play heats up, but this is Kentucky's team sheet for y'all on YouTube on the screen right now. And basically Kentucky is, well, not basically, they are 13th in RPI. They're sitting here at 18-2. They're 6-1 in road games. Their non-conference RPI was at 26. Strength of schedule, non-conference 176. So that's really kind of where it kind of weighs them down. You look at it right now, they're 6-0 in quad two, and that's actually all 6 home wins. The Citadel and Alabama sweeps, but they haven't played a quad one game yet. And that's the thing to me on the resume that stands out the most. But again, that RPI number is huge, and Kentucky being at 13 right now without getting into kind of the meat and potatoes of their SEC schedule, I think is a good point to be as we get into the second weekend and the second of 10 and more of these quality games. And you have to remember the non-con games, you still play Louisville twice, so that'll help you out and all of that. So, so they're in a good spot, and basically they're in that host range right now, and that's where you want to see them stay as we move forward.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, RPI coming in at 13. I don't know where I necessarily expected them to be, but this was higher than I thought it was going to be. Like you said, it's early. I mean, I don't think D1 even, they have their team profiles, and I think it just released this week, I want to say. So, but you're right. I mean, these next few weekends, any of these SEC road series are going to be, great opportunities to get it. I mean, there will be no shortage of really quality wins to find here. And that's kind of the thing. I remember we did the Morehead State. I think we might have gone live after, just the way it worked out. And it's just an early midweek game that they lose, and people are kind of freaking out about it. But it's this is part of what can happen in a long season.
Mm-hmm.
And you look up, they've lost one time since then, sitting in a really good spot. Got to keep taking care of business in these home games and just avoid the sweeps. I mean, it's huge to get sweeps, and if you can avoid being swept, I mean, that's how you get into that host range. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, it's you can kind of see it. You're 13 wins, 13 wins in the SEC from hosting. If you want to kind of think of it that way, if you can get to 16, you're gonna have a great shot to be there in the top 16. Still probably too early to maybe talk about the high end range. I would say let's kind of see them. Like you mentioned, to this point, they've not played a quad one team, so no wins. Let's see what they look like against the very best teams on their schedule. In 24, they proved it, I think, in that Tennessee series, taking the opener, played them really tough all weekend, and they'd won so much really up to that point that that was a real thing for that team. By the time you got to May, you knew they were probably going to be a top 8 team. So with this group, you've got 6 more weeks or so to get to some of these really important late series that you get at home. So seeing if they can stay afloat. I mean, if you want to kind of look a little bit ahead, the one series, and I think they're probably a little bit better than what they have been, but Missouri, it's like the only schedule you can kind of, or the only team on the schedule you can kind of look at and just assume that you're just flat out going to be quite a bit better than they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So do what you can in these other series. I mean, at Ole Miss, if you take a series down there, I mean, that will be really, really impressive. And LSU, I know they're kind of going through it a little bit right now. They've kind of had a weird year, just talent-wise. It just feels like a team that could click at any point. So, any kind of damage you could do down there would really get you going here early. That put us in early April, feeling really good about what that month could bring to you. So, and April historically has been a pretty tough, not just for UK, I'm sure for a lot of teams, just because it's just the thick of SEC play. It can be a bit of a harder month there. So to try to give yourself some cushion going into that to where, if you do have a bad weekend here or there, it's not something that's going to crush you.
Yeah, obviously, at Auburn, April, that really stands out. That feels like it's going to be tough. But just overall, I think, Derek, just kind of, looking out, projecting, the schedule is, at least right now, just not as tough as I thought it would be, right? You mentioned LSU struggles, but it's not just them. It's like South Carolina's having the year from hell over there.
Yeah,
that's the road series you get. And, who knows what they even look like when you go there at the end of April. Vanderbilt's not having a great year. They just lost the midweek game to Indiana, and they dropped a few midweek games here. And then obviously we talked about LSU. Now we'll see, Arkansas just took a big series at home over the weekend. So that was notable. But there's some, you look at the top of the SEC, it's like Texas, Georgia, and there's another team I'm missing that Kentucky just avoids. So, I'm not saying it's an easy schedule, but I do think it's not as maybe daunting as we thought even 3 weeks ago.
That's South Carolina. You're not that much older than me. Whenever I was coming up in high school, that was the school. They had won back-to-back titles. What that program's turned into is pretty. I know they're not they've had a bad year pretty much in everything. Women's basketball, Don Staley still has it rolling there. Yeah. But outside of that, they're having a hard time in a lot of these other sports.
Don't search Ray Tanner, South Carolina baseball. You're gonna see some upset Gamecocks online. So, they are miserable over. I mean, they showed the crowd today. I think there was 4 people.
I saw
there.
That was rough. I mean, that is a road series for UK. You mentioned that at the end of April. We'll see where things stand. That's a little bit over a month from now. Maybe they'll be playing a little bit better at that point. But that's a good observation you make with the schedule. I mean, even Florida, right? They were in a dogfight with that South Carolina team over the weekend at home. So we'll ultimately see Tennessee is obviously going through first year coach, similar talent wise, I should say, to LSU. I mean, different situations. LSU's got a 2-time national champ in the dugout, whereas Tennessee's got a new coach over there. So we'll kind of see where they are. They might have things figured out a little bit better by May, but those are the kind of series late in the year that should be great crowds, I would think, for Kentucky. At that point in the year, I gotta say, I thought Sunday's crowd was good for an early season. It was
Saturday's crowd was good.
Yeah, it was a really good, well-attended weekend, loud. Definitely see, the baseball fan base, I think, buying in more, and it's easier to do. When you have a team that went to Omaha a few years ago, been to a few, 3 straight regionals now, and a team that everybody, I think, felt really good about coming into the year. And they've taken care of business up to this point, and they should set themselves up to a spot where there should be some pretty electric atmospheres later on in the season.
Yeah, it's going to be, if they keep winning, obviously, you just build momentum, hype, everything that comes with that. And so that gets people excited. I think it was good. This was the first big home weekend too. And then these are probably the most attended games, I would say, since the Moorhead. First game you lost, you get them back in the building, and you give them some really. I mean, those were fun college baseball games. I thought, Kentucky, they played really 3 fun college baseball games. And even I think the Friday game even ended in 2:40 or so. So you even didn't have the us super stretched out as we can see it get sometimes. But before we get out of here, Derek, I have to ask you a question: is Matt McClain back?
It seems like Tito thinks so. He's going with it.
I saw that. Yeah, 2-hole.
Well, I did see he tied, I think, the most home runs in spring for our Reds since the Louisville native Adam Duvall back in 2017. So some fine company there. We love Duvall Star in this household. So yeah, I'm ready for it, man. What are we 9 days out now? Yeah, 9 days out from opening day. Got the World Baseball Classic final coming up once we hop off here. So I'm in on Matt. Yeah, I might as well be. I mean, he was so good that rookie year, and it was the way they stuck with him last year. Hopefully gave him some confidence because I mean, if I were the one making decisions, I'm not so sure he would still been. He might have been down in Louisville with you for a little bit, but now that he's having a good year, he is the one who makes the most sense hitting 2-hole. Like when you kind of look at that roster, I mean, unless you wanted to go with Big Sal there at 2, McClain kind of made the most sense. So I'm happy that he's earned it clearly. So hopefully he can come in and continue it.
The Athletic had a, who's making the biggest impression in spring training. I didn't even want to read it. I'm like, I can't, like, let me see it in real games first. I don't need to do all this right now. And then I think moved the tab to Twitter, and the first thing I see is Matt McClain in the 2-hole. I'm just like, oh, here we go. I guess we're doing this now.
Do we have a updated over/under on their win total for the season?
I haven't even looked. I usually look week of. We can get over to BetMGM right quick. This is how to podcast as we do it live. What is your guess? I guess it will be. Let's start there.
Probably lower. I'd say around 81.5.
I know. What was the fan? I mean, the fan graphs was not great last I looked.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going off of. I would probably go over, of course, I will say I was pretty mad at all the projections last year because they were like all in the high 70s, and they ended up not being like crazy far off. So maybe I shouldn't be so quick to dismiss what some of these are. I would think around that's lower. Me personally, I think they're gonna be pretty good. And to me, as a Reds fan, I feel like pretty good's like I think they can win more than 85. I mean, this team last year won 83, and I feel like at no point they really like played great ball last year. So it would help if Hunter Green was pitching before July, but that's baseball.
Yep, that is right. I could look in the best I can find here. Don't have an exact number, but 80 wins, 80 or more, minus 122. So that's right on the. It's a little bit higher than 110. So I'm guessing like the number would be right on 81 and 81. So if they went over that, that's kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, whatever the Brewers, they take the over on them too. Whatever it is, they're going to find a way in the regular season. They'll get there. That's
not a bad strategy. Not a bad strategy at all there. Here, let me see if I can find it here. National League winner, Reds 20-1. NL Central, Reds 5-1. Cubs plus 110. Brewers plus 240. And then the Reds are third. Pirates 6-1, and the Cardinals are. I mean, I don't know how the Cardinals fans are going to do it this year. If they are like as bad as these projections are with them, I don't know how they're going to survive.
They'll be fine. Best thing in baseball. Be good.
If we can do it, you can do it. You Yokos over there. That's what I say.
I would like to see them finish last 1 year though. That'd be good for. That'd be good for them. The Pirates, you got Skeens, and then like everyone's talking about Connor Griffin. Like I'm really excited to see him play. It's been a while. I mean, since
they got some star power. It sounds like
they do. Yeah, I mean, well, they're being, and they spent a little bit of money. Like I can't even like punch down the Pirates. I mean, they're so much, like the Reds.
Here we go.
So.
I got it's 80.5 at BetMGM. 80.5 is the total.
Well, I'd take the over, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think they're going to be better than that.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt McClain's hit 7 home runs or whatever in spring, man. You got to factor this in.
I'd base it most in I think the starting rotation will be good, and then I think they have I think they have I think the bullpen's improved. I am worried about Pagan, but I do think they have better middle relief depth, so hopefully that'll take some off the plate. And then they're still young and ascending on offense. So I do think they'll take a step. I don't know how big the step will be forward on offense, but I do think they'll take a step forward. And then just, I don't think it's necessarily a great division they're in either. So I think they're going to be able to, they're going to be in it till the end, I figure, and have a chance to get it at least back at their way in the playoffs similar to last year.
Well, the big news was knowing that they already have their trade deadline acquisition in Hunter Green. You know they're going to be selling them on that, so we already know who it's going to be.
My galaxy brain take on that is like that's fine. If he's really going to be available in July, fine. Like he can only go for 2 or 3 months anyway, so like we might as well have him for the end. So that's fine.
Empty the tank there. Yeah.
Low manage him until we get to till the Bengals start training camp, and then hit the gas. So let's go.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to get going. Red Sox coming in. I mean, that's a fun.
Yeah,
I've never been to opening day. Like I wish I could go to. That's a really fun opening day game to get it started. A team that you don't see all the time coming to Cincinnati, so that'll be. I know they'll all turn out up there in the Queen City.
And we thank you for turning out here. Pump it up. We'll be back next week. We might even go just live after the opening day game. Might as well.
That'd be a good time.
I'm sure if no Ian Jabot this year, thankfully, maybe save us from some misery. But that'll do us this week's episode of Pump It Up. We'll see y'all next week.